Slowdown Series. Thank you for joining us today. In this series, we're exploring the power of Shmita, the year of release, the 7th year in the 7-year cycle, through live conversations with changemakers across the Jewish world. My name is Rabbi Zelig Golden. I'm a founder and the executive director of Wilderness Torah, and I'm thrilled to welcome today's featured guest, Jakir Manela, CEO of Hazon and Pearlstone. Jakir will introduce himself in a moment, and then I'm going to ask a few questions about Shmita, and we'll discuss different aspects of this powerful cultural value that is at the foundation, we believe, of building a regenerative culture for this powerful and challenging time. And we'll give you some opportunity to ask questions from our live stream audience. If you're joining us as viewers, you can use the live stream chat box to submit questions throughout the conversation. Wilderness Torah is thrilled to run the Shmita Slowdown Series as a way to share a spectrum of perspectives and practices around Shmita. Shmita means release in Hebrew. In the 7th year of a 7-year cycle, when the Jewish people are instructed, called to release the land, debt, and those who are in servitude. In our modern context, many are translating this year into a cultural opportunity to rest, renew, and transform. For Wilderness Torah, we're taking the Shemitah year to take stock, clarify our purpose, and plan for building the Center for Earth-Based Judaism in the next 6 years. We're preparing for the next 7-year cycle to become a stronger, more unified, and more just and regenerative Wilderness Torah. So Jakir, thank you so much for being our first person on this series, and I'd love for you to take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Zelig. It is great to be here with you. Awesome program you're offering, and really honored to be here. My name is Jakir Manela. I go by he, him pronouns, coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland, Piscataway, and Susquehanna land from the Pearlstone Center. And I am, as you mentioned, leading the Pearlstone Center and Hazon as we go through this powerful this merger in the Jaffe world, Jewish outdoor food farming, environmental education world. Really honored to partner with you and Wilderness Torah and so many other amazing leaders and organizations and efforts around the country. And more important than all of that, I am an Abba. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a human being on planet Earth, and grateful to be here with you.
All right. Jakir, thanks so much for coming. So let's jump right in. And what does Shmita mean to you and to your work? And I'm thinking Pearlstone, something very local, farming, and then Hazon, something national, international. You know, like what is Shmita for us in this time?
Yeah. Thank you for listing up these questions. Years ago, somebody asked me. I was part of a group where somebody asked the question, "How do you say Shmita in how do you say permaculture in Hebrew?" Permaculture, this like integrated holistic system of ecological design and integrating food and energy and homesteading and social permaculture, justice. And I said, not that this is the correct answer, but I said, Shmitaniut, like Shmitaness, to me, like is really so deeply integrated and aligned with permaculture, as our teacher and friend Yigal Deutscher says, like sabbatical culture, right? And so for me, I've been teaching a lot about this lately, thinking about what we see in the Torah is that it is an octave of Shabbat. We encounter Shabbat right away, right? In Torah, the creation story culminates with Shabbat. It's this deep, powerful practice, again, an ecological practice, letting ourselves and everything rest, and a social practice of well-being for our communities. And Shemitah being this deep, like exponential octave of that on a deeper and higher time scale every 7th year. And it has such a radical challenge to us, again, ecologically, to let the land rest, and socially, to let the needy of our people eat, to forgive debt. These are not small practices. These are big, big changes. And I don't know anywhere else in the Torah, Rabbi Zelig, maybe you do, but where it says, and when you ask, what will we eat? Like, where else in the Torah does it say, we know you're not going to believe that this is possible. And when you ask, like, how is this going to work? Don't worry, there will be, a big harvest in the 6th year. So to me, it is intentionally challenging.
Well, it does happen. And you might see it,
Yeah.
it's related to manna, pre-Shabbat manna, where we're not going to eat on Shabbat. How's it going to come? And we get a double portion. That's an interesting connection, the wilderness and wilding, and how we're told to trust in the 7th year, just like with manna, trust in the 7th day and the wilderness.
There's something about that sabbatical culture that is hard for us to like really step into, really believe that we can rest, that we can release, and that will be okay, that wholeness is there, but we've got to step through a certain portal, certain threshold, So it's a challenge, it's an invitation. And for me, on a personal and family level, community level, it's really, it's again, a challenge and invitation to step back and say, like, what can I do differently? How can we live differently fundamentally?
Yeah.
Something as small, but also as big for me as I've been living at Pearlstone as a retreat center and like being on call and like haven't been able to, like, this is kind of small, but as a personal practice. Okay. Haven't been able to turn my phone off on Shabbat, because what if there's an emergency? What if people need me? And starting this Shmita year also aligned with this merger, my phone is off on Shabbat. I'm taking digital Sabbath. It has been a deep move for me in my personal practice. And, where can we all find like that next step to take in our personal well-being and sort of stepping out of a personal realm and into sort of organizational realm? Just today, we had an awesome all staff meeting for Pearlstone and Hazon, like 70 people from all around the country kind of zooming in and sharing all the great work that's going on. Really awesome. And to share sort of the Shmita work that we're like thinking about doing over the course of the year. There's a piece of it that's about land, that's about perennial and regenerative agriculture. 2 farms, one in Baltimore, one in Connecticut at Pearlstone and at Isabel Friedman Adama. In both places, we're actually planting chestnut orchards. So really investing in perennial and regenerative agriculture, and really looking to invest in that as a landscape practice, as a stewardship practice. Also really thinking about justice and equity practices aligned with Shmita, and thinking about partnerships with a variety of different institutions in Baltimore, New York, New England, and one particular practice we're taking on is integrating BIPOC pricing structure, different pricing and financial structure for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our networks, and being intentional around that. Continuing our emergency food response work, and then most sort of obviously, what does sabbatical culture mean for our team? How do we prioritize well-being and sustainability? How do we resist the culture of urgency in nonprofit life, in our jobs? How do we create this to be a sustainable workplace? And those aren't easy questions, but those are the questions we're asking, and we're going to work together to try to move forward. One specific thing we're working on is we're going to create a new personnel policy for the organization, because it's a merged organization, and we're really committed to integrating a sabbatical policy into that personnel policy for everybody. And we don't know what that looks like, but we're going to be working on that too.
Oh man, we're working on that too, Wilderness Torah. So I'm excited to hear how you do that.
Me too.
So Shmitaniut, trust, permaculture. What I hear is like there's a translation of some like ancient sacred law values that related to very specific land, and now we're like asking to translate it into our current modern day lives. I know you just returned from Scotland, and you were at Glasgow at the COP26, and I can't imagine you weren't talking about Shmitaniut like in the circles you ran. So what do you think Shmita has to teach us about climate change and climate change resilience, and where does that fit into the moment we're in there?
Yeah, it's fascinating. This is the week post COP26, and I was there for the first week. I was home for the second week. Just been doing a lot of conversations about this, radio with several different Jewish organizations locally in Baltimore. And in each conversation, I'm starting with, because people want to hear about COP26. So what's it like to be there? It actually, there were not a preponderance of Jewish voices. It was like important to bring a Jewish voice to that space. There was an awesome Israeli delegation. They were great. It was cool to connect with them. But it was noticeable that in the multi-faith leader sort of circles I was in, I was bring in the Jewish voice. I'm proud to do it. And what I've said to folks about this is, let's start by talking about Shemitah. Let's start by talking about what time we are in. And again, the challenge and invitation to step back and think differently. Think about Shemitah as like a radical social and ecological reset button on society. That's what I think. That's what I believe Shemitah is. I can't imagine a more powerful embodiment of that sort of Shemitah practice than what COP26 and just this moment around the climate crisis emergency, what we are being called upon to face and work towards in climate justice, in resilience, in changing our economy and our society to something fundamentally different. And we got a lot of work to do, but I think the depth of change. And I will tell you that part of what in a faith circle we were thinking about out there was, there's such a focus on like the technological fix. Switch out the coal-fired power plants for the solar panels and windmills, and that'll do it. And that's important. It's totally necessary. And what we saw a lot of in in Glasgow was nature-based solutions. You can't just like cover the earth with solar panels and windmills. You actually need forests. We need the rainforest. We need nature. We need that nature connection. And why is it that these solutions that we see are necessary, and like science is proving it, and it's even achievable? Why aren't we doing it? Because it's not just about a technological fix. We actually have to change our culture. This is a cultural, moral, spiritual crisis.
Yeah.
And I think that's really at the heart of this. And that's what Shemitah is like coming to invite us and challenge us to take on.
I love drinking at your well, Jakir. It's awesome. Nature connection, like a la climate change and Shemitah, that's like, that rings a bell, and that's kind of at the center of Wilderness Torah's work and our culture change work and our youth mentoring work. I heard, and I keep on repeating this because it kind of blew me away, Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the UK, was beating this drum leading up to COP26 about naming that like the global society is an adolescent culture, and it's time for global society to grow up, and to put something other than themselves at the center, and that we need to become adults and like get past this climate crisis. And I was like, yeah, Boris Johnson, what an unlikely bedfellow in like looking at initiatory rights for human beings on planet Earth. I was like just wildly excited about that. And I love you talking about culture, and I'm curious what you'd say about, and what would you say to the youth about Shemitah? Like, what is the role of youth and our relationship to youth vis-a-vis Shemitah, would you say?
First of all, it's great to hear of your deep resonance with Boris. I know that you guys go way back, so
Yeah.
Mazel tov on that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So nature connection here at Pearlstone, as you know, we have this amazing program here, Farm and Forest School, and our kids have grown up just on the land, like full deep immersion in fire building and shelter building and wild edibles and tracking and like being in fellowship with the natural world and with creation. And when we've on like in those programs and as the kids are growing up, sort of step back to have conversations about, and here's what's happening on a broader level in the natural world, two things happen. One is that there's kind of disbelief, like when you are in family and community with the natural world, like we need so much more nature connection in order to protect and steward this natural world, because it's just inconceivable to children, and I think to adults too, who have a real primary connection, that we would allow this to happen. And the other thing is that there is real grief. There's real grief, and we have to honor that. We have to hold space for that. And it's real. The climate anxiety is real. And again, I think it speaks to the spiritual nature of this crisis, that we need to create a framework and a process and a community where we can hold that grief, hold that anxiety, and hold like the hope and the resilience, and being there and being in the march, like on Shabbat morning, with people from all around the world and a lot of young people, and singing and dancing and chanting with like anger and righteous indignation and like all of that together. You know, that is, I was emotionally overwhelmed, you know, like tears and laughter and song and like feeling all of that, and just trying to hold youth and really also like really follow youth, really like empower that leadership. And the Jewish youth climate movement, like those teen leaders are so inspiring to me, because they see this, they see what's coming, you know, and they're not having it. They're like, you know, demanding change, demanding action, and they're doing it with like full hearts, you know, and faith that we can take this one step at a time. So, I mean, I think the centering of youth leadership, the centering of indigenous leadership, the centering of women leadership in this moment is critical. And I think, you know, the two things that President Obama said, I think particularly to youth, was really moving for me. He said, I want you to stay angry. Like, there is a place for that. I think if we are only anger, it's like, it's hard for ourselves. We can't like let ourselves get consumed by that, but that is an understandable sort of emotional place. And then the other, you know, he quoted Shakespeare. It's like, what wound ever did but heal by degrees, you know, and like allowing the place where we can, one step at a time, one day at a time, you know, step into what we can do. And I just feel like really full hearts, you know, all around me in Glasgow, and with you, with Wilderness Torah, with all the work that we're trying to do together, just one day at a time, you know. You're on mute, brother.
Sorry, let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
And that is just translating this ancient sacred law, this ancient admonishment coming from, you know, the deep wisdom of the Torah, like release the land every 7 years, you know, release debts. And then there's the big, you know, Yovel, revert land ownership, you know, every 50 years, after every 7 cycles of 7. And then there's the, you know, releasing those who are enslaved, you know, which was a literal thing then. We still find that in the world today, you know, and it's you know, we have to take that into the world of equity. Like, there's so many threads.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm searching for, you know, what do we focus on?
Mm-hmm.
What do we focus on right now? So it's a hard question to ask, and it's hard thing to, but what, you know, if you were to look down the road, you know, at the next Shemitah year, and I know we did this 7 years ago, you know, we were asking this question, and I'm not sure I'm satisfied with the results. And so I want to be a little more focused. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what would be one big change that we want to see coming out of the Shemitah, and how would we embody it 7 years from now?
Mm. Yeah, not a small question. I think one thing I want to say is, you know, who are we in that question really matters. You know, Hazon as a national Jewish umbrella organization, you know, trying to lead a transformative movement to deeply weave sustainability into the fabric of Jewish life in order to create a healthier, more sustainable, and more equitable world for all, gives us an opportunity to work with some of the national Jewish organizations and umbrella organizations. And for that world, what we're trying to really move forward is every Jewish organization, every Jewish leader can and must step into action, step into climate action. And that's going to look different in every organization. Yeah. But we believe and we see that there can and will be something close to a universal commitment moving forward. And I think that is achievable, and it really needs to be there. That's at in some ways that's like a lower bar, right? For our world, people that are like, yeah, we see that, we got this. Now where do we go from here? Like, we're trying to act, right? And I think some of the points you just made about, you know, Yovel and land release, land return. What does that mean for our relationships with Native peoples, with indigenous communities? What does that mean for reparations work in the Jewish community? And I think there's an important emerging conversation in the Jaffe movement on these pieces, important partnerships that Wilderness Torah has, that Pearlstone has, and that we should be building and really looking at what we can do further. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be the first place that some sort of mainstream legacy Jewish institutions are ready to go. But our movement has always been sort of at the cutting edge of what these steps look like. So as we arm in arm, right, together in partnership, can figure out how to step in, lean into those conversations, that's how we can hopefully bring larger parts of the Jewish community behind us. So it's not going to look the same, I think, for everybody. I know that's hard, but I think really it's about like, how do we wrap our hands around this, our arms around this as a society? Because it's really now time, in a way that even the last Shemitah year, I think there wasn't yet as much urgency and visibility and readiness for Boris Johnson to name that, right? Like, we're ready to move forward as a society, and we need to, in the next number of years, really take action in a bunch of ways moving forward. And I'm honored to be able to do it with you, brother. Looking forward to it.
Amen. Amen. Jakir, we're going to move towards close, and I just want to thank you, for your holistic thinking, for your deep commitment, and for your leadership. And no small thing, you've now stepped into the role of both the CEO of Hazon, and as well as Pearlstone, supporting the merger of these two great organizations, one in Baltimore, one based in New York, and also with Falls Village, Connecticut, what we call the mothership. I was an Adama fellow way back in 2006. Got a lot of my inspiration from that place. And, I want to thank you. I want to thank you and your predecessors, and I want to thank all your successors and all of us who are working on this movement. But you're sitting in a really important place right now, and just thank you for your leadership. And I want to thank everyone who's been watching online, and I hope we continue and deepen this conversation. And certainly looking forward to partnering Jakir with Hazon and Pearlstone and the broader Jaffe movement that we are cultivating. If you're interested in learning more about Jakir and about the work that Hazon is doing, please visit hazon.org, as well as the Pearlstone Center on the outskirts of Baltimore, Maryland. Check out pearlstonecenter.org. They're doing amazing work. And also, please go to wildernesstorah.org and follow us on social media to learn more about how we are slowing down, taking stock, and transforming in the Shemitah year, and working on developing the Center for Earth-Based Judaism, one of our big answers to how to move forward with climate resilience and cultural change. Please join us next time for another episode in our Shmita Slowdown Series. Until then, lahitraot.